in Gaza.
Surprises?
Yeah.
You mean intelligence surprises?
Pages, walkie-talkies. Do you know how many treated equipment do we have in these countries? You don't. I do.
You mean booby-trapped equipment?
Not only booby-trapped.
And spying?
Manipulated equipment. All right?
In which countries are you talking about?
All the countries that you can imagine.
And not Gaza?
Not Gaza.
Nothing
enough.
in Gaza at all.
Did you see that? If we had it, I mean, we knew something about them coming. Something, right? I would have sold them everything. Just everything. I mean, you can't imagine the quantity. When I have invented that method, that was in 2002 to 2004.
The pager method.
The manipulated equipment method. Okay? We have already used it. Manipulated equipment in Second Lebanon War. Some of the elements were speaking to us.
How did you use it?
Want a glass of water?
We can get some brandy.
He could tell you, but he didn't.
I know it's an early morning in London. I mean, I don't think that is the case. But how did we do it?
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'm a Christian man, and I'm just confused why that there's this notion that we might have owe Israel something, or that they're our greatest ally, or that we have to support this multi-$100 billion foreign aid package to Israel to cover this, to quote Charlie Kirk, ethnic cleansing in Gaza. I'm just confused why this idea has come around, considering the fact that not only does their religion not agree with ours, but also openly supports the prosecution of ours.
Yeah, so let's say a few things about this. First of all, when the President of the United States says America first, that means that he pursues the interests of Americans first. That is our entire foreign policy. And that doesn't mean that you're not going to have alliances, that you're not going to work with other countries from time to time. And that is what the president believes, is that Israel, sometimes they have similar interests to the United States and we're going to work with them in that case. Sometimes they don't have similar interests to the United States. And this example, the most recent Gaza peace plan that all of us have been working on very hard for the past few weeks, the president of the United States could only get that peace deal done by actually being willing to apply leverage to the state of Israel. So when people say that Israel is somehow manipulating or controlling the president of the United States, they're not controlling this president of the United States, which is one of the reasons why we'd be able to have some of the success that we've had in the Middle East. Now, you ask about, sort of Jews disagreeing with Christians on certain religious ideas. Yeah, absolutely. It's one of the realities is that Jews do not believe that Jesus Christ is the Messiah. Obviously, Christians do believe that. There are some significant theological disagreements between Christians and Jews. My attitude is, let's have those conversations. Let's have those disagreements when we have them. But if there are shared areas of interest, we ought to be willing to do that too. For example, one thing I really, really care about is the preservation of the Church of the Holy Sepulchre in Jerusalem. Christians believe that that is the site where Jesus Christ was crucified, and also that his tomb is right there as well. My attitude is, if we can work with our friends in Israel to make sure that Christians have safe access to that site, that's an obvious area of common interest. I am fine with that. What I'm not okay with is any country coming before the interests of American citizens, and it is important for all of us, assuming we're American citizens, to put the interest of our own country first. That's what we're going to do. That's what we try to do every single day, I promise you.
Welcome back to the SCIF. Thanks for joining us today. We're still on the ground here in Montenegro, meeting sources and developing stories, and we'll put those out at the correct time. We're also investigating some of the, crime and governance issues and speaking with sources and in the government and also inside the church, and the interaction between the political system and the church here, as well as in Serbia. We'll be in Belgrade tomorrow for a few days, and again, meeting sources. And this is what we do at CDM. We get you the information from on the ground. So we spend time to get out across the world in areas that we're interested in, and to get you the best information possible. By the way, some housekeeping. Jeff Borgiano is fine. He's recovering, I should say. He had a medical issue right before the show yesterday. So anyone who's concerned about him, thanks for that concern. Thanks for the emails and the comments. Really appreciate that. I passed them on to him, and he's appreciative. Another good announcement is that we have been one of those selected for getting a Pentagon press pass. So CDM is going through the process to get that pass issued, and we'll be giving you straight information direct from the Pentagon press room going forward for our armedforces.press site. So we're really excited about that. We are on podcast. Please listen anytime to all the shows. Sometimes we get them up immediately. Sometimes we don't, depending on how full of work the team is, how busy. We're also on Gettr. We're on X. We're on Truth. Well, we're not streaming on Truth yet, but we will. We're streaming on X and Gettr, but also YouTube and Rumble. We load the show on YouTube after the show. Please put cdm.press in your scan daily, and also please put cdm.press in your scan daily, and also check out our partner whatfinger.com for a good aggregator site after you hit CDM, of course. I want to say hello to the chat, the crew in the chat. Thanks for all the engagement already getting going. It's really getting strong there. I'm having trouble keeping up with it and reading it all. So we try to during the show, though. However, we try to put some comments up just to show some interaction with the audience, because we really appreciate our audience, and we appreciate all the comments and all the suggestions and the sharing of the show, the links. It's just really, really positive. We're trying to be the best intel show out there, the show you need to watch to understand exactly what's happening across the world and the information you need to know, not really what you think you need to know. On that note, let's dig into the mission brief. Today is October 30th. I'm your host, Todd Wood. Trump just made a massive trade deal with Xi Jinping. I'm going to talk about that with Tom Teague, but we'll also be putting some articles up on cdm.press today going into the details of that. Very positive, we think, but we'll, as Reagan said, trust but verify. Is the ceasefire holding in Gaza? We're not really sure. There's been attacks both ways. The Gaza fighters crawled out of a hole and shot some Israeli troops, and Israel responded in kind massively against a bunch of different targets. We've got that story up on our Israeli site, Zionism.com, spelled with a T-S-I-O-N, and we'll continue to report on that subject because we have a lot of resources there to do so. Bill Gates comes clean on climate change. Can you believe that? After years of pushing the hoax, if you will, that human beings need to destroy their economies to save the world, he's coming out and saying, well, you know what, it's really climate changes all the time, and we need to take care of humans. I think President Trump had something to do with that, but we'll see. Bill Gates is a powerful guy, and Trump, I think, is trying to keep him on or bring him back into the fold to help his golden age moment, and maybe there's a deal being made there behind the scenes. We don't know. Texas sues Tylenol manufacturer. This just needs to happen, right? I mean, any of this stuff that they've been lying on the tests and lying on the effects, or doing crappy tests, really not testing, and then hurting people, especially pregnant women. I don't know if they were hurting people on purpose, pregnant women, but there is evidence that links it, according to RFK. But if they were, they need to be held accountable. So we'll see. And Amazon and Meta are working with Israel, providing data. I think it was Amazon and Meta. Maybe it was another company, but I know Amazon was in it. They're giving Israel information behind the scenes off their tech platforms on you and your work with foreign governments or anything that Israel wanted to know. Amazon was providing. So just you need to be aware of where you get your equipment, how you use your equipment, who made your equipment, etc. So we'll be right back. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to go through some stories, and then we'll talk to Tom Teague. Thanks for joining us today on the Scoop.
Well, in the case of hydroxychloroquine and ivermectin, these are two medications that have been FDA approved for use in humans for decades. They are very, very inexpensive. Interestingly, available over the counter in almost every other country other than the US and Canada.
Yeah.
You can just walk into a pharmacy and buy them like we buy Tylenol in much of the world because they're that safe. And we've known for decades that ivermectin has very strong antiviral properties. It has anti-inflammatory properties, and both ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine are what we call zinc ionophores. They help to move zinc from the bloodstream into the cell, which is where it needs to be in order to fight off a virus. So lots of application for these, and we have every reason to believe that those drugs also will likely have some efficacy against H5N1 or a number of other respiratory viruses that we may meet down the road.
If you haven't noticed, gold has reached a new high, all-time highs actually, and keeps going up every day. Why is that? It's because precious metals are a long-time historical store of value. And if you own a portfolio and you have assets in the fiat currencies, i.e. stocks, bonds, cash, or whatever, you're vulnerable to hyperinflation, which is coming as our debt explodes another trillion every 90 days. It's really scary. So how do you protect yourself? Go to Advisor Metals. If you look on any of our cdm.press sites, about halfway down, there's an ad for Advisor Metals. Click on it, fill out the form for your contact info, and Ira Bishotsky will contact you and talk to you. It's an easy conversation. There's no sales pitch. He's completely verified by us. He has a regulatory background we've checked into. We've checked with his bankers. We've checked with his IRA custodians for metals, and we can highly recommend Advisor Metals and IRA. So go to Advisor Metals. If you call them directly, tell them we sent you at CDM, and he'll definitely take care of you. But protect your portfolio because you really need to. It's coming. Thank you. Let's talk about some of those stories. The ceasefire is holding in Gaza, according to J.D. Vance. He was asked about this. By the way, you saw in the cold open J.D. Vance talking to the college student about Israel. You saw the Mossad saying they control devices and have explosives and intelligence gathering devices in many, many countries. Made me want to ask, well, what about our products? Do you have explosives and do you have intelligence? Are you listening to all our calls? That's a question that needs to be asked. And then what about our government? Who's listening to us? So that's important. But as far as Gaza is concerned, the fight still is on. I mentioned that there was an exchange of fire from both sides, but J.D. Vance says that the ceasefire is holding. So we will take his word on that, and we'll continue to report on that area of the world. This one, Texas AG sues Tylenol makers for hiding autism risks, misleading pregnant women. I'm really going to follow this case. It's important. I mean, if you're misleading pregnant women, why would you do that? The only reason is profit and a depopulation agenda. I mean, hurting fertility is something we've seen across the human race, especially white Christian populations, Western civilization. And this could be part of it. We don't know, but we're going to follow this story and see what CHD comes up with. This is and Ken Paxton. This is our relationship with CHD, Children's Self Defense, Bobby Kennedy's NGO, that we have an agreement with them and we work with them. And by the way, we're going to be sponsoring a conference in Austin, Texas with CHD November 7th through 9th. So if you're around, say hello to us at the conference. CDM will be a sponsor of that. How the food industry lobbyists keep the food stamp gravy train going. This is an important one from the Mises Institute. We worked with them as well. And this one is on cdm.press. You can check it out. Interesting on how all of this money is being made. And there's so much lobbying going on to keep the money train going with medical, with food stamps, with the military, etc. We're going to put some stuff up on Bill Gates. That story's big. And the Amazon and Israel story is also big, and also in the trade deal with Xi Jinping. We'll be right back after this break. We're going to talk with Tom Teague at length, and then I want to play some of the Georgia show since we're on the ground in Montenegro and busy all day long. But we had a great show last night on the Georgia show, outlining, again, connecting dots, which I think you'll find extremely helpful. So Stay with us. We'll be right back after this break, and we've got Tom Teague on the financial markets and the Fed reaction to the Fed policy yesterday.
Celebrate our newest launch, Rev 7. I'm bringing you an amazing introductory offer, plus an exclusive overstock sale that you're not going to want to miss. Rev 7 is our premium energy drink that tastes great and gives you energy all day with no jitters and no crashes. That's because there's no sugar and no caffeine. I'm so sure you're going to love Rev 7 that for a limited time you can try our 3-pack absolutely free. Or check out our Percale bed sheets. I can't believe I'm even going to say this. Every color, every style, every size, only $29.88. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to save 20% on our Rev 7 12-packs or try our introductory 3-pack absolutely free. And our Percale bed sheets, all sizes, only $29.88, even the queens and kings. Inventory is extremely limited, so order now.
Pandemic, we can never be caught unprepared again. And so many Americans, when COVID hit, they had nothing in the house. Stores were shut down and doctors' offices were shut down. And even if doctors prescribed drugs, hydroxychloroquine, ivermectin, pharmacists wouldn't fill the prescriptions. That was a nightmare.
Now the situation is much worse. We have these horrible supply chain problems. In our emergency medical kit at the Wellness Company, we have 8 prescription drugs that are all potentially life-saving.
Most people who died with COVID, they died in the hospital because they didn't receive early treatment.
Every American family should have one of these.
I can tell you the Wellness Company kit is the answer.
When Johnny comes marching home again, hurrah, hurrah, we'll give him a hearty welcome then, hurrah, hurrah. Oh, the men will cheer, the boys will shout, the ladies, they will all turn out and we'll all...
So we're back with our master of the universe, Tom Teague. Tom, thanks for joining me, man. Appreciate it.
Absolutely.
So you wanted to talk about the Fed yesterday. Let's start off with that.
Yeah. So, as expected, the Fed cut rates 25 basis points. And personally, as expected, Powell found a way to kind of give the markets more worry. He said in the meeting and in the press release when they cut rates that the blurriness of the data would give them, more skepticism about cutting rates going forward, is essentially what they were saying. It's unbelievable to me how, and he also said that the QT, quantitative tightening, would be ending in December. Well, I have friends in the bond market, and a lot of whom have been fairly supportive of him, for a while. I've always thought the guy was not qualified to do this job and weak. But they were surprised because the repo market right now is definitely sort of on the edge. And the commentary to me was he's sort of playing with fire here. And there's actually people that are in the Fed, like Logan, who are on his side, that were basically saying that we needed to have repo. For people who don't know it, is where we live in a collateralized world. So you can borrow against your assets. So you can take
liquidity.
Right. Correct.
Liquidity. Yeah.
And
short term.
And banks will lend that to each other, and the Fed will do that as well. But generally, banks kind of give each other credit and lend each other money. And for whatever reason, there's not a lot of cash in the system right now, and banks are depositing cash with the Fed, and it's made the repo market get kind of tight. And when that happened,
so this is just for our audience. This is what happened at Lehman. They were heavily repoed, and rates changed, and they just couldn't refinance. They were like
Correct.
overnight paper, essentially.
Well, it creates, it's like a kindling. It can start a fire. You know, when you're when you start looking to use your assets and the charges start going up and you're in a leveraged world, the value of those assets will invariably go down. And when you enter that tightness, and it's just a question of like how, I mean, it's not something the Fed can't stop. But one of my friend's comments to me was, I can't believe that the Fed is doing this and they already blew up the repo market in 2019. So this will be the second time during Powell's tenure that the repo market has blown up, if it does indeed happen. And for me, you know, without getting too much into the conspiracy thing, I just don't believe that he's that naive to not understand what's actually happening. And there's also people in the Fed who are kind of warning against it. And it makes one wonder if the Fed's just trying to drag it out as long as they possibly can so something does blow up. And, you know, if you look at it and you look at it in a partisan lens, which I think you have to do now, you know, Powell was an Obama appointee. Trump did appoint him to the chair. And there's all kinds of reasons for that. I think Trump clearly regrets it. And Trump 2.0 is a lot more careful about who he brings in because he realizes that a lot of these people are tainted. But the Democrats seem to always do better and regain power in times of crisis, right? So they're sort of the party of misery. You know, if you look at COVID, they won back the White House, the Senate. If you look at what happened in the GFC, Obama won, great financial crisis. So they take advantage of crises and they get power. And it makes one wonder if the Fed's kind of playing with fire here, expecting something to blow up. And when it does blow up, you know, it creates a process. And even if they step in and fix it, sometimes that shakes things for a while. So, you know, I don't think it's like, you know, three car alarm or whatever you want to call, fire alarm or whatever you want to call it yet. But I think this is very concerning that he did not address this point. It's also very concerning that, to me, that you've had a slew of companies announcing there's going to be layoffs in the tech sector. AI is definitely going to be, without a doubt, one of the most disruptive things to the labor market. And this is going to happen over a period of years, but it's going to happen sooner rather than later. It's not like a decade out. So with that in mind, if the Fed's sitting there saying they're not going to cut rates because they're afraid of what tariffs are doing, and then Trump is actually, you know, in China with Xi trying to have some sort of negotiation, and they're making progress with Japan. They made progress with Japan. They're making progress with Vietnam, Thailand. This tariff thing is going to be less of a worry. And then if the Fed's going to look forward, they should be looking forward to the effects of AI on the economy. And someone asked Powell in the meeting yesterday, you know, what about AI and interest rates? And Powell made some kind of moronic statement about how interest rates don't really affect data centers. And I'm like, you know, your job is to worry about the labor market and is to worry about inflation. And you can't.
I was going to say, except when you're building them.
Right. Correct. Well, you can't just worry about inflation from something that hasn't happened yet and not worry about labor for the same reason. You see what I'm saying? So it's like, he needs to be more focused on this. And it looks to me like they're orchestrating. And it was funny because someone put this, you know, Andrew Ross Sorkin just wrote his 1929 book, and he rang the bell at the New York Stock Exchange yesterday. So I think it was yesterday. So, you know, it's kind of like, is this like some big psyop that's being put on us right now? You know,
predictive programming
right in time for the midterms. So, and, you know, like, obviously, I think the best thing to do is to call them out on it early. And then sometimes these things don't happen if they think they're going to get caught. Right.
So true. That's what we're for, Tom.
Right. Exactly. But I think that it's concerning to me. The market didn't really have that much. I mean, I think the December, which was at 90% for a rate cut, went to 65. And that's that's sort of expected. But, you know, Powell making statements like that yesterday made the bond market, like the longer dated bonds, sell off. And that hurts people with mortgages. So, you know, I can't say enough how bad I think he is. And I used to feel like maybe Trump was being a little aggressive, saying that the guy should be fired. But that level of either, and I kind of believe this thing like incompetence plus power equals malice.
Yeah.
And I don't believe the idea that people are just incompetent. I think
I don't either.
Is incompetence and
intentional incompetence.
Yeah, correct. And that really concerns me. And I think, you know, when someone says things like that, they have to know that it's going to harm the bond market. They have to know that it's going to put more pressure on the Treasury to fund itself. They have to know the knock-on effects of waiting till December to end QT. They have to know what's going on in the repo market, and they're doing nothing. So it's like one of these like passive aggressive ways of creating a problem. So that's, you know, that's the way I sort of interpreted the Fed yesterday.
Fantastic analysis. I'm going to put this out on our Masters of the Universe show. Thank you for that. I always go to Tom for the straight skinny. So what else is happening in the markets? I want to talk about trade, but what else do you see going on? Where are rates right now?
Well, the sort of swap spread stuff kind of expanded a little bit yesterday. Treasuries are kind of still in the process of selling off a little bit. 10 years back to 410. It probably goes to in this tape with like people being unsure about another rate cut in December. It probably goes to 425, which is unfortunate because it was breaking away. And I think if we had seen a more dovish, you know, sort of press conference yesterday, I think we'd be on our way to 350. Instead, we're on our way to 425, which is ridiculous.
Which is the power the Fed has, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it is, and it also helps all the big macro guys sustain a short if they are short bonds. It's kind of free money for them, and you know, so it's concerning. I just don't. I think if you make the argument that Fed's really working for Main Street, then they would be more dovish about what's going to happen, and they would be more concerned about how the bond market trades. And Powell seems to be completely indifferent to that.
So you make a good point. You know, we've talked about market manipulation and, you know, possibly a big psyop, if you will, but you've got the Fed possibly taking care of the big banks instead of Main Street. That's a really good point. And that's why it may not just be that they hate Trump. At the same time, they're getting rich. It's kind of how they roll, right? They destroy the country and at the same time get rich.
Yeah. Well, it's also, I mean, you know, it is sort of taking care of the big banks, and it is sort of putting the smaller banks in a tougher spot. Which they make their bread and butter off of lending to Main Street. Yeah. And you know, so I don't see the wisdom in anything he did other than that maybe he's, you know, very conflicted right now. I think he's definitely in the bag on the Democrat side. I think he's been very political the whole time. And I think, like I've said before, that this Lisa Cook person is just, she's a roadblock to Trump getting control of the board of governors.
Yeah. She's an actor.
Yeah, correct. Because I clearly don't think she knows what she's talking about. But, you know, but we go on here. We had earnings last night. We had, they were sort of mixed bag. Google did really well. Microsoft was a bit of a disappointment, even though they had great numbers, but the market's, you know, it's very overbought right now. Meta came out and they had a tax charge, and that stock's down 10.5% this morning. You know, NVIDIA announced, made a statement that in 5 quarters, they expected to make $500 billion of revenue, which they have like about a 50% net margin. So that makes their PE go to like forward PE whenever that takes place to that period of time at like 25 times. So NVIDIA is doing really well. I think the AI thing is still really driving the market. I was on a call last week and people were talking about how some of NVIDIA's older chips, like the A100 that's, you know, been around for a while, they're trading at 20 cents on the dollar. There's so much demand for chips right now. So, I think that's the theme, and that's where most of the
meaning the older stuff, they want the new stuff.
Yes, there's value. People want to use it for different things.
Yeah.
Maybe not for the live language models because the newer technology is a lot better, but there's a lot of we're really going to a new level of computing, which is being driven by data center and number crunching and very high powered processing computers and GPUs and stuff. And that is saving massive amounts of money in electricity and in time for people who are using it. So like, I think this trend is not some, a lot of people just look at the live language models and say, they're never going to be able to make as much money as they claim. But I think this is about also cost savings for data crunching, and it's just creating a new world for everyone. Live language models will, of course, be a part of that and at the forefront of it, but it's transforming the entire industry in much of the way that memory did, kind of during the early 2000s.
Wow.
And it's going to be a massive, robotics. Amazon's already talking about like how they're going to spend laying off 30,000 people and calling these things cobots instead of robots, like coworker bots. But there's going to be a huge impact on the labor market going forward with this stuff and with robotics and with AI. And the Fed needs to really wake up about it,
Totally agree. Do you see any winners or losers? I mean, you've got OpenAI, I guess, is the leader out there, but with them going into porn and some other stuff, I've heard they've kind of taken a hit, and reputationally at least.
Well, there was the All In podcast. I was listening to it last week, and they were talking about how some of the AI and some of the states actually are trying to make it so that AI is unable to discredit protected groups. So that's like basically complete censorship, right? If AI talks about crime statistics, is that exploiting a protected group? I don't know, right? It clearly is on the minds of people in Europe because they want to censor everything. But you look at like the mass immigration and the crime that has been a result of that. Maybe they want AI to not talk about that, right?
And of course they don't. Of course,
you've got states like some of these blue states like Colorado, and they're trying to pass laws to protect these. And I always forget the word. These people that are kind of considered to be on the sidelines, and that's very concerning. And also, there's fear that some AI is actually already programmed like that by the people who set it up.
Totally.
And I think. And I've said this before, I think, that's why it's really important to have many live language models, because it creates a competitive marketplace. And the best thing to do with graft and monopolies is to have a competitive marketplace. So I think it's important. And I think, what Grok's doing, I think Grok is very good in that respect. There's still some bugs, but I think also that, like they're doing the Grokopedia thing, which is going to compete with.
That's going to be huge.
Which we already know Wikipedia is a complete scumbag operation, because they're basically allowing for, Vox and weird lefty channels to come in there and edit content, but they're not allowing for any conservatives to do that, or very few.
That cannot come too quick.
Correct.
I'm so happy that I'm going to use that instead of. I hate.
Well, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, it's a joke. Go ahead.
I was going to say, what about trade? What do you think of this trade deal with Xi Jinping?
Well, I mean, I think there's, for me, it's not that complicated. It's China hasn't really been behaving like a good trading partner for a very long time. So you're kind of saying, don't steal my IP, don't send fentanyl to the country, and don't predator dump stuff that's going to hurt our industries, right? It's for most of the other countries, it's just like, bad tariffs that we had in place that have existed for a long time, or, protecting markets, not trying to destabilize the other side as much. So, I mean, I think it's good. I think obviously China is in China has this like saving face approach to everything that they've always had. And I think clearly the tariffs and the threat of impending tariffs has scared China. I read a lot about their property market and how overextended it is and how much debt the sort of local states have. And I think China actually this is what he had to do. And I think China's wanting to come to the table because they fear what's happening. We're a monopsony. We are the world's market for everything. So it gives us a lot of power to negotiate. And we didn't realize that for a long time. And I think Trump's just proven a lot of people wrong on that. They just didn't want new trade policies. They were happy with the way things were working before. And this is
because they were making money. Their communities weren't being destroyed.
Correct.
Yeah.
But I think, I think Trump wants to have, I don't think Trump wants to wreck the economy. He knows we're going into midterms. So, it's a delicate balance, but I think he's not afraid. And his sort of like, aggressive behavior with this has gotten people to the table where it took years before. I mean, I think they didn't even really get China to the table in his first administration until, ironically, just before COVID came, right?
Yeah. Hello.
So my advice is, we're in election year now. Our next year will be the midterms. Watch out for the tricks, that the Democrats are going to try to play. Watch out for the tricks that China's going to try to play that could hurt the economy and hurt Trump. I think you have to keep your eyes and ears open. We're not in this idealistic capitalist world where markets are all, happy and discounting. And there's a lot of people at the sides trying to create chaos.
And buy some ivermectin.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what? The next pandemic could be on the way. Tom, thanks much, man. Anything else you want to put out?
Nope, that's it.
All right. Talk to you later.
Thanks. Bye.
Yeah.
Well, in the case of hydroxychloroquine and ivermectin, these are two medications that have been FDA approved for use in humans for decades. They are very, very inexpensive. Interestingly, available over the counter in almost every other country other than the US and Canada. You can just walk into a pharmacy and buy them like we buy Tylenol in much of the world because they're that safe. And we've known for decades that ivermectin has very strong antiviral properties. It has anti-inflammatory properties, and both ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine are what we call zinc ionophores. They help to move zinc from the bloodstream into the cell, which is where it needs to be in order to fight off a virus. So lots of application for these. And we have every reason to believe that those drugs also will likely have some efficacy against H5N1 or a number of other respiratory viruses that we may meet down the road.
If you haven't noticed, gold has reached a new high, all-time highs actually, and keeps going up every day. Why is that? It's because precious metals are a long-time historical store of value. And if you own a portfolio and you have assets in the fiat currencies, i.e. stocks, bonds, cash, or whatever, you're vulnerable to hyperinflation, which is coming as our debt explodes another trillion every 90 days. It's really scary. So how do you protect yourself? Go to Advisor Metals. If you look on any of our cdm.press sites, about halfway down, there's an ad for Advisor Metals. Click on it, fill out the form for your contact info, and Ira Bishotsky will contact you and talk to you. It's an easy conversation. There's no sales pitch. He's completely verified by us. He has a regulatory background we've checked into. We've checked with his bankers. We've checked with his IRA custodians for metals, and we can highly recommend Advisor Metals and Ira. So go to Advisor Metals. If you call them directly, tell them we sent you at CDM, and he'll definitely take care of you. But protect your portfolio because you really need to. It's coming. Thank you. Welcome back to the Georgia Show. I'm glad to be here with my cohort, Bill Quinn. We've got a heck of a show for you tonight, a lot of information to go through, a couple of housekeeping events. I am in Montenegro, which is part of the Balkans. We're meeting sources here. We just were in Beirut working with the Christian communities there and reporting on what's happening to them and trying to raise the profile of those communities around the world, actually. So that's going to continue. And Montenegro is an Orthodox Christian country, as well as Serbia, which is our next stop. But we're building sources and building relationships and to continue the kind of reporting that we bring to you from all over the world. We have another good announcement that we are in the process. We are one of the firms that's been selected to have a Pentagon press pass. So we will be visiting the Pentagon and reporting and getting access to a lot of the figures that you see in the national news, and we'll be in the Pentagon press briefings. So we hope to see that consummate here over the next few weeks to months, and you'll see more from us there on CDM on the military side. Bill, what do we got for the show today?
Well, tonight's going to be very interesting. We've got quite a bit going on in Georgia, some of which is building on a report that we did in our last show. And once again, I have to give massive shout outs to Georgians that are, one, they're paying attention, two, they remember and recognize patterns, similar things going on, and they're getting information to us so we can investigate and then build new reporting. So we're going to show a deeper, broader impact of what we began to show last week with Soros, Tides, and other organizations influencing what's going on in Georgia, worse than we even reported last time. And we're still not sure we're at the full depth, but we are getting more as we go through these days. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about some things that happened with Trump this week. He went on a sort of an honorarium tour, I guess we'll call it. We'll show some of that happened. We're going to talk about some of the folks that that we have reported on in the past that we believe have some very troubling ties, also potentially back to Soros and company. And yet they seem to be, in some cases, trying to hope that we've forgotten. And if you recall, we have promised we're not going to let Georgians forget who's who and who's been doing what. And this is a particularly important time as we work our way through primaries, through the public service election coming up on November 4th, and also into the 2026 elections next year. So we're going to talk a little bit about all of that. And a couple other things as well. So,
well, I just want to ask people to a few things. Check out whatfinger.com, cdm.press. Put us in your daily scan, morning, noon, and night. We are a global news wire. We have reporters on the ground. That's why I'm here. We build relationships and we get information 24/7 that you're not going to get anywhere else. You know, we can't cover everything at the network, but we cover what you need to know. And you may not even need to know it. So that's our specialty, and we're going to continue to do that, and that's what we're working hard at. But you can also check out whatfinger.com. We work with them. They post a lot of our content, and we're appreciative of that. So we just want to give a shout out to them and check them out if you're looking for a good aggregator site. And we need funding to continue to grow, and one of the ways we do that is with our no ad subscriptions. You've heard us talk about this before, but if you go to my.cdm.press, that's my.cdm.press, you will be able to sign up for your no ad subscription. It's $10 a month or $100 a year. A lot of people just pay the $100, get it out of the way until next year. It's cheaper that way. And you get access to all of our reporting, whether it be, the Colorado legislative session, all the way to the Ukraine war, to what's happening in China, et cetera. So we're proud of that, and it works well for everybody involved, our readers and us, because we get funding every month that we can count on, and we really appreciate that. Let's get rolling, Bill.
Okay, sounds good. So we're going to begin with a little bit of a review of what we began covering last time. Let me bring this up. So folks will recall that Representative Anna Paulina Luna from Florida, who is on the House Oversight Committee and other things, has released a spreadsheet showing funding coming from some of the nefarious players and to whom it is flowing. And the point that this began with was trying to show, she was trying to show that The funding and the people involved in these protests around the country the organizations are actually being paid to do this. And we're not talking about a small amount of money. This particular spreadsheet, and it's only one, represents just under $300 million. And people are, I think, picking up on this. They're learning it and they understand it. And so I give them a lot of credit. And the important part here is to understand this is happening in Georgia at the same time. Now, yes, we're not seeing some of the protests in the same ways that we're seeing them in Portland and Chicago, perhaps. But does that mean that they won't be here? Well, we don't know yet. But it's important to know what we're looking at if and when it crops its ugly head. So here's the list. And then very notably, there's one organization that I highlighted last time, Indivisible, also known as Indivisible Civics. And it gets about $6 million in funding from various sources, including George Soros, the Tides organization, along with Arabella. And you'll recall that when President Trump was briefed on all of this about 2 weeks ago, those were three of the organizations that were specifically mentioned in that briefing: Arabella, Soros, and Tides. A little bit of background on Tides. Some people will say, well, Tides isn't really directly tied to Soros. Well, one, you'll find that if you search just a little bit, you'll recognize that Soros was one of the folks who seeded Tides. In other words, gave the initial money, it sounds like, to get it started. Yes, there was another founder, but often that is sort of a way of keeping their arm's length between organizations. You'll recall that some months ago, Elon Musk himself labeled Soros a genius when it came to NGO creation and funding. And he described the case where Soros would start an NGO, get some funding, use that funding to start 5 other, 6 other, 10 other NGOs, and then they'd begin trading money back and forth. What does that do? The flow of the money makes it almost impossible to track the original source and the original outcome. That having all been said, you'll find that Tides receives major funding from the Open Society Foundation that is directly linked to Soros, and from Soros himself in a number of cases. Okay. So last time we talked about finding that this person, Anita Tucker, who sits on the election board in Forsyth County, is associated with Indivisible. And you can see it here. You can see in some of the other things that we posted that she's been active in organizing certain things that apparently Indivisible is part of, both in Forsyth County and potentially elsewhere. Here she is speaking as an organizer at one of the events in Forsyth County. So we reported this last time, and to their credit, many folks around Georgia went to school on this. And they came back and they said, we've found some more and we need you to know about it. And so, bless them, they brought forward a number of reports so far that allow us to continue to build our awareness of what's going on here. So let me go back and let's see if I picked the right place. Here we go. So one of those is in the Appalachian area, typically would be a combination of Pickens and 14th District and so forth, 11th and 14th District. And here is an Indivisible event, if you will, back in 22. So this is a little bit dated, but that's even more telling because now we can see that these organizations have been active in Georgia for quite some time. Now, there were a couple different things they spotted. This happens to be a July 4th parade. And you can see here the sign that they're carrying down the street, Appalachian Indivisible. So apparently they're organized into regions. What I am told by the folks that brought this forward is there was such an uproar over some of these that they've actually now made many of these photos and other photos that I'm getting ready to show you disappear. Isn't that interesting? So again, if you're like us, if you're spouting truth and bringing truth to people, you don't want it to go away. You want it to stay out there so people can learn. When people hide things, that's an indication that they don't want you to know what they're doing. So this was, again, on July 4th back in 22. And here's an example of one of the people that, that was part of this. She had written on herself, "My body, my choice." Not sure what else I can comment on this.
I was going to say, where are you going to go with that one, Bill? I was waiting, man. I was all excited.
I could say something like, geez, it's a shame the supermodels don't write that on themselves, but I don't know. In any case, so here is, again, another post that has to do with Pickens County. And again, it's Appalachian Indivisible. And in this case, they had apparently a Christmas gathering in which at least one member, perhaps more, of the Pickens County Board of Elections was representative and attending. So here we have yet again another Board of Elections representative that's stuck together with Indivisible. Again, we don't know what exactly the relationship is. I did take the time to call the Pickens County Board of Elections yesterday. I did get a call back from the chairman, explained that I would like to speak to one of their members and one of the members of the board. And unfortunately, my phone didn't ring, so it must have been them. So that person, I am told, is pictured in some of these things. But again, this was up on a site known as nopickens.com. And apparently many of these photos have now been expunged. So who are we talking about? Well, here is the Pickens County Board of Elections and Registration. On the right-hand side is Becky Cantrell. Becky Cantrell is the person that our sources reported was one of those associated with that meeting we just pictured. So back to this get-together, if you will, and was apparently there to participate in some manner. Again, what the ties are, who's doing what, we can't tell because, again, people don't seem very forthcoming in wanting to talk about this. Why would that be? Well, so that was one of the reports that came forward. And again, we give them just a ton of credit for spotting this, bringing it forward, and allowing us to, to bring it to our listeners. So the other thing that came forward was I was pointed to this article from Gateway Pundit. Again, this is a bit dated. This goes back to after Roe v. Wade was overturned by the Supreme Court in the Supreme Court finding, essentially said that the court had overstepped. They had made law instead of interpreting law. And many will recall, too, that the woman who was the foundation, if you will, of Roe v. Wade actually changed her story in subsequent years. There was a story that she had been raped that was part and parcel of the case. Later on, she recanted that and said, well, I wasn't really raped. And they found that the Reuters and others reported carefully that the case was not based on rape. Well, in fact, it was at the time. More importantly, here's what this article reports. 84, what they call lawless prosecutors from 29 states, 84 prosecutors from 29 states, and several Soros-funded DAs vow to disregard the law now found and confirmed by the Supreme Court, and not prosecute women who seek abortions or medics who provide them, even though Roe v. Wade had at this point been overturned. And they suggested, hey, take a look at the list and do your homework. Well, we did. And we find some very interesting things. So again, elected prosecutors across 29 states have signed a statement. We're going to show you the statement in just a minute, suggesting they will refuse to prosecute people who seek, assist, and provide those who have abortions following the Supreme Court's decision to overturn the 50-year law that guaranteed access to the procedure in every state. And then below in the same article, they list, here's a list of prosecutors signing on to the pledge. Lo and behold, the very first name listed is one Patsy Austin Gatson, who is district attorney for the Gwinnett Judicial Circuit. How fascinating. And there is Ms. Gatson's listing on LinkedIn. Interestingly enough, I didn't pull the whole thing, but it says 2020 at the top of her LinkedIn profile. Why would she have 2020, I wonder? Maybe that's when she was elected. I don't know. But in any case, she's listed. And then I got another tickle and they said, go deeper. Well, I did. And all of a sudden we find that there's not one, there's not two, but there are indeed 7 district attorneys in Georgia that signed on to that same commitment, if you will. So I'm going to bring this over so I can read it more carefully, so I get the names right. Bear with me for just a moment here, please. And there we go. So we have Patsy Austin Gatson. We have Sherry Boston, who is the district attorney, DeKalb County. Shalina Cook Jones, district attorney, Chatham County, Savannah. David Cook, district attorney for Macon Judicial Circuit. And then I'm going to go back over here and I will go to the next page for you. And 3 more. And we've got, and again, I'm going back and forth between 2 documents. Bear with me, please, here. So we have Deborah Gonzalez, who is the Western Judicial Circuit. That's Athens. We have Dahlia, and I believe her first name is actually Elizabeth Dahlia. Why she just used Dahlia, I'm not sure. District Attorney for Douglas County, Georgia. And then Jared Williams, District Attorney for Augusta Judicial Circuit. 7. Now go back to the way this article started. It said 84 across the country from 29 states. Just in Georgia, we have 7 of that 84. That to me is interesting. That's a substantial percentage of that entire list comes from Georgia. Here is what they signed on to. It is from an organization called Fair and Just Prosecution. And while I won't read you the entire thing, you're welcome to look it up, and you'll find it noted in online. And it does say that these people agree they are not going to prosecute or pursue anything with regard to people getting abortion. So they're going to support abortions in Georgia against what the Supreme Court found. So again, it's kind of like, where do we need to go from here? And my instinct was press deeper. So fair and just prosecution sounds very interesting, doesn't it? And they always make up these very nice names. We talked about that with regard to the NGO that was pushing tort reform, the organizations that were pushing for the pesticide bill. They always give themselves nice, fair, good sounding names, right? Well, when you scan down and you find out where to go to learn more about fair and just prosecution, you can get to their website. There's their website. Then, if we go to the bottom of their website, look at what it says. Fair and Just Prosecution is a fiscally sponsored, funded, in other words, project of the Tide Center. 7 district attorneys in Georgia signed on to that letter. The letter came from Fair and Just Prosecution, which is a project of the Tide Center. So think about the connections here. Tide Center, tied to George Soros. Also tied to these other organizations we talked about, Indivisible and so forth, and many others we haven't found yet in Georgia. Doesn't mean they're not here. But we find out that these district attorneys acting supposedly in Georgia's state interest and in the interest of the people of Georgia have committed, they're not going to follow what the Supreme Court says. And they're going to follow instead what an organization, Fair and Just Prosecution, that is funded by the Tide Center is telling them to do. Do you find that concerning? I do.
What you've got here, Bill, is, there's stages to the Marxist revolution. And first they try to work within the system to do as much damage as they can. But once they realize the system is moving against them, they'll just stop working within the system and move to straight up illegality or, sedition or violence. And I think we're at that point.
It is very interesting. We're going to show some parallels too with other cases where courts, attorneys, other organizations appear simply to be turning their head away from the law. If someone in the community is smart enough to challenge the right thing, they find a way to either ignore it, to backburner it, or to say, no, that's not really what we're talking about here, even though it clearly is.
Or we're just not going to do that.
That's right. We're simply not going to follow that. Here are some of the comments that I made earlier regarding George Soros. For those that say, well, I'm not sure that they're one and the same. Well, they're not exactly the same, but that's the whole point. This is a game of hide and seek based on money flow, based on money movement. And so this came from one of the AI engines to give me data so that I could get the names right and the dates right and so forth. But Politico in 2024 described the Tides Foundation as having been seeded by Soros, even though it was originally founded by a person by the name of Drummond Pike, with initial support from other donors like Jane Lehman and others. The Soros Network has also funded related Tides entities. 22 million as an example to Tides advocacy. And they've supported various progressive initiatives. We've already seen that spreadsheet that Anna Paulina Luna brought forward. And so what we're seeing here is a flow of money coming into Georgia to cause certain organizations to be able to function. And we already know they have toeholds in some election boards. How many? We don't know yet. And I suspect we might find more. We see them with footholds in our court system, in our district attorney system, those who prosecute or fail to prosecute people that are doing wrong things, doing wrongful acts to other people. And so then you go back and you start correlating what we've heard in recent years, a stack up of cases failing to be pursued, people being released without cash bail and other things, or with very little cash bail in some cases, even though they have dramatic criminal backgrounds. And then we see what we reported last time, which are things like Laken Riley being killed by someone that was not in the country legally, had moved from state to state, had been already arrested on at least a couple occasions, shouldn't have probably been even free, and yet was free in Athens and able to kill her. So I wanted to make sure we knew about this, because my suspicion is, one, we will find more as more of those in Georgia bring forward their findings. And again, we want to say thank you to everybody that did that this week. And two, we need to out those as we find them. Eventually, I am convinced that the dynamic that you see going on in the country today will find its way to Georgia in an appropriate way. And many of these things will, in fact, get dealt with. How? Don't want to speculate, but they need to be dealt with, obviously. We can't have district attorneys being beholden to organizations that are not acting, not even incenting action in the best interest of Georgians. Deep breath.
Good point. Good analysis and good research, Bill.
Thank you. Again, the credit goes to those, they know who they are, that help push in the right direction. Thank you for that. Keep on, please. Keep bringing us new things for us to confirm and bring out. Perhaps this is a good time for a quick break.
Yes, let's talk. Christmas is coming, and we're going to start more talking about gifts for people you love. I'm on the road, and I brought my Nucleo Boost, the capsule size edition, and this fits right in a stocking, doesn't it? I mean, you can get this. This is 1 month supply, one a day, and you get everything you need at the micro level for your nutritions and micronutrition. And it's a way to fend off disease. If your body's got everything it needs, your immune system is much stronger. So I'm going to run an ad from John B. Wells, and consider the subscription. It's cheaper of Nucleo Boost for that special someone. Here we go.
I'm watching my friends gain more and more weight. And then eventually, I got to tell you, this is a little dark, but bad diet literally killed my whole crew.
Wow.
Diabetes, a stroke. I mean, all kinds of stuff. It's like, you had a stroke? You're not even 50 years old. You guys got to quit eating this stuff. Your body knows what's what. You're not conscious of this. But that's why people will go to the refrigerator and they'll grab this and that and the other and put together this outrageously elaborate combination of foods. Your body's trying to reach balance. Unbeknownst to us, our bodies are always trying to reach homeostasis. You can't eat all of this stuff and expect to live a long time. And one thing led to another, and I went, forget this. We're going to make our own product. So we partnered with one of the world's top 3 biochemists where nutrition-specific study is concerned. I said, all I want is the best nutritional and immune support product in the world. So we mixed it in yogurt. It's a powder. I got a bag of it here. I keep one on the console all the time, just so I can show people.
Yeah.
And it's a powder. Now, this is not candy. This is hardcore nutrition. And sugar is an enemy. And most people do not know that the reason these bellies are showing up on people all over the place, your body makes fat to store the toxins it can't get rid of. So it just puts them over here. But I can tell you this, you take this for 30 days and then lay off of it for 2 or 3 days, and you'll go, good grief, give me some more. Skin, nails, hair growing back. Cut yourself and it heals in half the time.
So another, let me bring the right one back. Another gift idea I want to make you aware of. If you go to the Manhattan.press, that's the Manhattan.press. I have to do something here. Hold on one second. Got to remove that. There's the Manhattan.press. You go to the top right. This is our New York City paper. Up on the top menu, I'll just do it while we're watching. Click on the Manhattan bestsellers. And that is our competition with the New York Times bestsellers list. There are some editor's picks there, but this is all the best-selling books. There's no bias or anything. We have adult fiction. We have history. We have nonfiction. We have politics, children's books, young adults, etc. So, for instance, if you wanted to buy I Went to Prison So You Don't Have To by Peter Navarro, you can just check out and you can order the book from us. And if you wanted to order some other book, let's say Atlas Shrugged, you can go to this site, which is a CDM bookstore, and you can order Atlas Shrugged. When it'll come up and you can buy it from us, and you don't have to buy it from people who don't share your values. So it's a great gift idea and a way to support free media and get the gift for somebody that has everything, just some ideas. Back to you, Bill.
Before we move on, I want people to remember something about Atlas Shrugged. Who is the author of Atlas Shrugged? Do you recall?
Ayn Rand.
Ayn Rand, that's right.
Yeah.
And where did she grow up?
She grew up in the Soviet Union and escaped and wrote about it. Yeah,
that's right. So remember that. We're going to talk about something in a few minutes, and we're going to come back to that as people learn more, I think, about Russia and their role in all of this. We're going to stick with Georgia. I want to segue to a video that Kevin Moncla put together and posted last couple of days. It's a really good piece that reminds people of the state election board case that he and Joe Rossi put forth. And we talked last time about how so much of the organization surrounding the state election board and into the Secretary of State's office, some of the courts, all seem to be working in concert to do everything possible to squash this case. Why is that? Well, there was a very interesting post this week that again suggests that if we get down to the bottom of a couple of these key cases, perhaps in Fulton County, perhaps in Maricopa, we would see enough to really understand what happened in 2020, and the dam would break. And I'm using that term myself. So I wanted to play this video. It's another primer and a reminder of what the case was all about and what's happened that unfortunately has got the thing stuck for the time being. But I'm pretty sure that eventually this is going to become unstuck. So let's watch this.
back to order the meeting of the State Election Board. And as promised, we are going to start with out of order with SCB 2023-025, Fulton County Tabulated Results 2020 General Election. Do we have a respondent here for that case? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for finding the serial numbers. The complaint 4 months ago, I asked for supporting documentation that showed the use of the scanners in the election, and the evidence provided included 7 opening zero tapes, 2 closing results tapes, 2 daily recap sheets. But these 10 scanners have no ballot images associated with the ballots that were scanned on those scanners. They have no memory cards with the ballot data, the ballot images. So the question is, or initiate an independent investigation to determine if 17,852 ballots are authentic. In addition to the motion, I request that the Secretary of State initiate an independent investigation of the authenticity of the ballots from 10 advanced voting scanners, or expunge the votes from
Hearing no second, that motion fails to move forward. Hearing no second, that motion fails to move forward. Hearing no second, that motion does not move forward. Hearing no second, that motion does not move forward. The chair would like to exercise its right to make a motion.
I'll make a motion.
The chair would like to exercise its right to make a motion. The chair would make a motion to refer to the AG for immediate review of this case and recommend a monitor team to provide investigative oversight of Fulton County elections for 2024. Discussion. All those in favor of the motion that originally stipulated signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition?
No.
The votes is 2 ayes and 1 no. The motion passes. Thank you.
Maladministration.
Working when he entered the building to talk with Mrs. Bremer, one of the election workers there. Mr. Garner replied they were boxing stuff up. The tally sheet was on the floor. Garner Sr. said his son told Allie Meekin that y'all are trying to F-word my dad out of this election.
After interviewing the polling staff, none claimed that the actions of the candidate nor his son hindered them from completing their election duties. That is virtually dispositive of the issue about whether we have a violation of the only statute that's alleged to potentially be violated, which is 21-2-569. Taking it further, there were multiple police reports that were filed. They were filed with Glenn County Sheriff's Office.
Any nays? Hearing no nays, the vote passes 4-0. Member Jeffries is on the phone now.
I found that video particularly helpful in understanding the timing and the cadence of the communication going on between the chairman Furbier and Jeffers, who was not calling in at the expected time, I guess I'll call it for the moment. And the result of that was that they could not get any of Jan Johnston's motions even considered because she couldn't get a second.
Amazing.
It is amazing. And that's why I wanted to show that video. And again, give a ton of credit to Kevin Monkla and his team and Joe Rossi for both of them bringing that case forward. You'll recall too that when things began to get hot in 2024, magically the chairman at that time, William Duffy, found reason without much explanation to resign his position and they ended up eventually Kemp appointed the new chairman, Vervier. So I'm sure we're going to see more of this as we go forward, but it's important that people really understand this is not a game. This is a set of steps being carried out to make sure, apparently, that this case does not get fully investigated, not in the way that has been requested. Okay, let me move to the next thing.
Let's go.
So I was prompted by an email that I got this week, and I'm going to pull this up, and it's from the Tea Party Patriots and from one Jenny Beth Martin. And it talks about, join us, let us sign you up to be a poll watcher in Fulton County. And again, given what we now know from Tulsi Gabbard, from the president himself and others, the notion of poll watching is still, I guess you could call it, important. But it would be foolish, I think, to expect it to make substantive change in Georgia's elections. It's clear that there's much more going on here. We just saw some of it. Than simple just watching what's happening physically in a poll location, especially when we know things like electronic communication going on with Serbia and other things. Also, what particularly troubled me about this particular email was this seeming, interest in taking leadership in election integrity, especially since what we reported about Tea Party Patriots, Tea Party Patriot Foundation, and some of their officers earlier in the year. Recall this article that we published, I guess back first quarter or so of the year. And it talks about a connection between Tea Party Patriots Foundation and USAID, which was all in the news at that time about the funding coming out of USAID flowing through NGOs, just as we had described a few minutes ago, these strange connection of NGOs that are moving money back and forth, and some of it eventually landing with Tea Party Patriots Foundation. I'm going to jump forward a couple of screens here. Here's an example. The box on the right, and I didn't blow it up for tonight, but if you could just go to the article I just showed, just look up Tea Party Patriot Foundation in the Georgia Record. You'll find that article, and you can go through all the detail. We've got all the receipts right in the article. One of the very concerning connections was funding coming through something called Internews Network. Now, Internews Network, and I think you'll recall, I believe you published an article on this as well, was funding about 7,000 journalists that were reporting about Ukraine over the past several years, and apparently steering some of what was being reported. It was found very concerning, and they appeared to be trying to, like we've said over and over again, try to create a narrative supportive of Ukraine's position. But more troubling is, look at where the funding was going. It was coming from USAID through a collection of NGOs, reaching Internews Network, then going to another NGO, and then finally on the box on the right, reaching some of it reaching Tea Party Patriots Foundation. The other thing we reported in the article was some of the officers of that organization, and in two previous articles, we had tied other funding flows from USAID to one Debbie Dooley, I think it's Deborah Ellis Dooley, if I recall correctly. And I wanted to show a video that was taken during the state convention and give you a sense of how these people work. And I'm going to jump into sort of the middle of the video. Now, at this point, there was a lady who had finally approached and been able to get to the microphone. There was a lot of reports about not being able to get the mics because people were guarding the mics, if they will. Up to an hour before the convention started, people were standing at the mics, even though they had nothing to do at the time. But the purpose appeared to be to prevent other people from being able to reach the mics and speak. When this young lady finally reached the mic, she complained quite adamantly. But watch the woman in the back, the curly blondish hair, and watch what she does while this person is speaking.
And then, hours later, she begins to surrender to vacation. This is not freedom. We have to be shut down. And this is what I'm saying. And the people who see don't understand what's going to happen. So where are the rules that allow that to happen?
She's got the floor. Stop it. She's making crybaby noises. Crybaby noises. This person,
really professional. Yeah.
Yeah, and this person is an officer of that organization, Tea Party Patriots Foundation. So I guess my take on this is, I get this email asking me to consider participating, and actually the bottom of the email invites me to contribute, and yet we just got through talking about the very concerning funding flows already going to an associated organization called Tea Party Patriots Foundation, led by, again, Jenny Beth Martin and including this Debbie Dooley. Is that what people want to do? Have they forgotten what we reported just months ago? And if not, please consider that and think about it as you get this and similar emails from other organizations that I think are hoping we forgot. Unfortunately, we didn't. So wanted to make sure we brought that forward tonight.
Sure. Good stuff.
So you had spoken earlier about your travels and some of the things you're working on. If you have specific things you'd like to share, perhaps now would be a good time to talk about some of the things you're finding, some of the conversations where you can discuss them.
Yes.
So folks will understand what you're about over there.
So first of all, I went to a conference in Beirut I thought the conference was on sustaining Christianity in the Middle East, but it ended up to be a more globalist-oriented conference about how Christians need to support climate change and all this kind of stuff. And funny enough, Bill, I was walking out of the conference, and there was an office right in the university, USAID. So I found that fascinating.
No.
So
I did not set that up, honestly.
So I was going to take a picture, but I neglected to do that. But I have been meeting with when I was in Beirut, a lot of the senior leadership of some of the major Christian organizations, political parties, and other groups that are trying to maintain Christianity in the Middle East. And they've got some points they want to get out. One is they'd like, and I'm going to write this up, but this is the results of kind of an interview of a meeting I did with them. And they'd like some attention to the Christian plight in Lebanon by the U.S. administration. And they feel like for decades they've been ignored. They'd like to help in recapturing some of the power structure that the Christians lost in the Civil War in country. They want a return of Sunni Muslim refugees out of Lebanon back to Syria now that the war's over. They should go back. There's 2 million Sunni refugees in Syria. They're concerned about terror. They're concerned about demographic issues. They're concerned about just a lot of different things. Economics, they're taking jobs. And then last, they want to keep Christianity very vibrant in the region. They want to grow the roots, as they put it. They want where Christ walked to be known for a Christian area for generations to come. And I think that's extremely important as well. So I left late last night and flew to Montenegro in the Balkans. We're meeting some writers here and some people who have been active with us. They're going to be more active in our Balkan and Eastern European sites. And then we may be going to Serbia, not sure. But anyway, that's what we're doing here, Bill. And we're a news service. We're global. We have people all over the world, and we're not joking when we say that. And you're going to get information. You get a phone call from somebody at 2 a.m. Hey, this is happening. It could be days before it shows up in the news. And that's our calling card. That's what we're good at. And we're going to continue pouring gas on that fire that is a strong capability of ours. So that's really all I've got at this point.
I think we're seeing that sort of dynamic happen even here in the States. You'll recall when the first Liberty door shutting happened, we literally got a call early in the afternoon of the day that it went public. And I believe we were out in front of everybody and reporting that had occurred. Matter of fact, even the SEB hadn't acted yet. Sorry, not the SEB, the SEC. But the point was that folks trusted us to come and talk about, disclose what was happening, and trusted us to get it out and not, somehow mishandle it and spin it a different way. Notably, it didn't hit the AJC nearly as fast as it got to us.
Yes, exactly.
So,
exactly. Let me just throw up a couple of images here. Well, you go ahead. What else you got? I'll throw these up.
Well, I wanted to talk about a couple things going on in Washington and more nationally, and so we can do that after you're through going through what you would like to, if that's appropriate.
It's okay.
Or we
why
can.
don't you go ahead and then come back to me?
Okay, sounds good. All right. In the last few days, there was a very interesting release from the House Oversight Committee. We know that following Trump entering office, it was found that an auto pen, meaning an automatic signing mechanism, had been used on a number of documents. After going through quite a number of hearings and much investigation, the House Oversight Committee published I think it's 20 or 30 pages long document that speaks to what their findings were. And that is, they believe many, perhaps not all, but many of the executive actions taken by Biden could be deemed and should be deemed null and void. And this would include pardons and other documents and executive orders implemented and issued by the White House during Biden's administration. So you'll recall in the last few days, just before he left office, there were a number of pardons that caused just angst and consternation across the country. One of the worst of which, in many people's mind, was pardoning Anthony Fauci. Why would Anthony Fauci need a pardon? And if he does need a pardon, why would a pardon be granted? What has he done? And we're still likely to find that out, but that was one of the bad ones. There were a number of family members and other things that received pardons. Now they've determined that based on their report, these should be deemed null and void and not valid. And now there should be an investigation. They've called on the DOJ to conduct a very significant review of the actions and also of the people involved in the White House that could have implemented a signing procedure absent the president giving a specific directive for that. So what does that mean? Well, it means that the people that were running the auto pen are probably in deep trouble. And it means that many of the things that apparently were attempted to put in place just before Biden left office may not be in place. And those stymies, those blocking mechanisms, if you will, may be not even valid. That would be fascinating. In typical fashion, a number of people jumped on it and found ways to poke fun at it. One of which is that. And so given the sombrero memes over the last few days, so here is the auto pen with its own sombrero. Where this is going to go, we don't know yet. Folks can download the actual document. If you'll go to either Eric Doherty's post or I believe the House Oversight Committee itself has had several posts, and they link the document in those. You can download it. It's a PDF, and you can read it. It is a pretty lengthy read, but if you concentrate on the executive summary up front and then the conclusions, you'll be able to get to the meat of what this means or could mean as we go forward. But it is fascinating. So many of the things that we were concerned got put in place appear not necessarily to be in place. Okay. Did you find the things you were looking for, Todd?
A couple of them. So take that
just
down.
go ahead.
I had the luxury of being asked to speak at the Talbot County, Maryland Lincoln Day dinner recently. And that is just a slide from that. CDM was highly valued, mentioned, and loved, and they love the Easton Gazette, our Maryland paper, and they want more. So they want more coverage, and they want to support the paper more. So I was very thankful for that. And then this is the conference I went to in Lebanon at the university on Christianity. And anyway, we'll be back in Beirut. I have a feeling in a few weeks there's some lingering business we've got to take care of. But that's all I had.
Okay. So back to the National Front. Trump has traveled over the last few days and has received just kind of an unbelievable welcome, if you will, where he has gone. One of those was from South Korea. And it's kind of ironic given these no kings protests. Of course, we don't have a king. We have a president acting like a president for a change and doing the things that he's empowered to do based on the Constitution. But in this case, in South Korea, they awarded him a golden crown of sorts in thanks for his work and stewardship on their behalf. And the Prime Minister of Japan gave him the former Prime Minister's personal golf putter, which is just an amazing thing. It's just a personal gift that you would not have seen. I don't think I've seen something like this ever, but it is remarkable. And I didn't have a slide of that for tonight, but it is very interesting. You'll find it on X and you can see that. And then perhaps most notably, Trump was in Malaysia and held a summit, actually called the United States Summit. And they welcomed him with the theme, believe it or not, let me take this down, the theme from Rocky. Let's listen. I don't know. It just feels like history. It really does. The Rocky theme in Malaysia.
Yeah.
Okay.
Wow.
And they were actually playing it. I cut it short. People can find it online if they want to hear the rest of it. They did a wonderful job. It was probably the best rendition I've heard from a live orchestra in a long time. But I mean, there's impacts being made in places that I don't think would have ever foreseen for one reason or another. And it is remarkable. One last thing, and I'm bringing this up because we have spoken again and again and again about Mr. Dimitrov, the special envoy from Russia, special envoy on behalf of Putin. And he presented today, or over the last couple of days, a review of the status of Russia's economy. And again, it's kind of like, depending on who you listen to, you'll hear varying reports, but I have a funny feeling we can trust what he has to say. I wanted to play this because it gives a sense of how sturdy Russia economically is compared to many of the countries that seem to be not acting in our best interest. Let's listen to this.
Economy, and just give you some numbers, I think many people will be shocked. So this is numbers of growth, unemployment, debt, and budget deficit of Russia, EU, UK. Sorry, I'll run through some of them. So Russia last year grows 4%, Europe, UK around 1%, a little bit less than 1%. 4% of Russia grows. Unemployment in Russia 2.2%, in EU 6%, in UK 5%. Debt to GDP in Russia around 15%, in Europe around 100%. In UK, 97%. Budget deficit in Russia, 2.6%. In the EU, 3.3%. In UK, 5.1%. And inflation, some officials said, oh, Russian inflation is around 20%. Well, that's factually wrong. It's actually 8%. and the forecast for the end of the year is around 6.57%. So on all of the macro indicators of growth, etc., Russia beats EU and UK. And I think one of the reasons is the cost to Western nations of sanctions. And we mentioned before around 300 billion that US businesses lost from moving outside of Russia. Our estimate of cost to Europe is 1.3 trillion lost on basically moving away from Russian gas. I mean, there are lots of immigration programs they could have done with this 1.3 trillion.
One of the things that I heard that I was astounded at was the debt to GDP ratio. It's a fraction of what we have in the U.S.
Yeah, I've been writing about that for a long time because they essentially, until recently, they didn't really have any sovereign debt. I mean, they have big rainy day funds from their oil exports, and it was I forget the gentleman's name, but there was a close advisor of Putin who after the 90s, when they had the devaluation, they brought him in, Kudrin, I think is his name, and he just gave some really good advice to Putin, and they did some really strong economic stuff, and they've always been in a better position financially. They're not as robust of an economy, but their financial decision making is very good.
It is fascinating, and it's not what most people would have thought. People don't. My own opinion now, people don't really understand what Russia has done and hasn't done. And what I look back on now is so much of the narratives that we've heard have poked the arrow at Russia being the bad guy, if you will, most of the time. And yet, now that we know more than we did 4 or 5 years ago, we can begin to say, wait a minute, there's lots of bad actors in the world. And in some cases, perhaps our own agencies were part of that definition, doing various things we didn't know that they were doing. But as we learn more, and as Mr. Dmitriev has shown by whatever role he had in helping get the JFK documents to the U.S. and let us see what was in play back at the time of JFK's assassination and such, already there's talk that those things might be rejuvenated, and we might once again move toward something that could be very positive. A little early to speculate, but it is fascinating to watch. And again, it has that feeling of, gosh, this is not the way we would have seen things 4 or 5 years ago. So with that, that's about what I have today, Todd.
Yeah, I'll be back tomorrow on the SCIF at 10 to noon, Monday through Friday Eastern. We'll be live from Montenegro, and we'll have some interesting guests. And by the way, if somebody was watching this morning, we had a scare. We thought Jeff Bongiano was actually poisoned coming on the show, but he's okay. Just get that out. He had some kind of attack, and we were kind of worried about him, but because he's in the depths of this fight in Palm Beach County on the election fraud, and it was really upsetting a lot of people. So I was worried that something bad had happened to him, but he's okay. So we'll get that out. That's all I got, Bill. Thanks.
Okay, that's great. We'll see you next on Sunday at 2 p.m. And we'll have some very interesting follow-up on some of the stuff that we, again, have covered in previous shows. I bet there's going to be more going on here in Georgia. So We'll see you then.
Hope you enjoyed us on the SCIF. We'll be leaving tonight, or actually tomorrow, for Belgrade, Serbia. We'll have a live show tomorrow, so stay with us on that. So see you tomorrow at 10 to noon, Monday through Friday Eastern on the SCIF. But we'll be flying to Belgrade, Serbia, and be doing, you probably won't see you on the show. We may play some stuff Monday on that, maybe some of the Christian facilities, some of the new buildings the Orthodox Church has built, and what's going on with Vucic in Serbia. There's a lot happening that we want to talk about, so we'll do that Monday. Thank you for joining us on the SCIF. We will see you then. Hope you have a great weekend, but we'll see you tomorrow on the SCIF at 10 o'clock. Thanks.